Recording in progress.
Welcome everyone to the People's Debate League. I'm your host, Vincent, and today I will be going again over the third part of the 4 schools for philosophy of mathematics. This fourth part talks about formalism. It's interesting read. I'll just give you a little bit of a breakdown of what I got from it. It seems to me that many of the mathematicians during that time, when it came from formalism, couldn't agree on the idea of formalism. Can't really agree on it, whether there was some, let's see, basic, but there was whether there was a higher understanding or what. In fact, I'll just go ahead and begin reading it to you. Again, I did pre-read it. Hopefully, this should go a little bit smoother. I also want you to know that this is going to be a very long read, much longer read than normal. I don't want to discourage anybody from watching it, but I do hope and appreciate you guys to stay the length of it, get a clear sense of what is actually going on. But it seems to me that the consistency is pretty much the same. But it's interesting because there are some very well-known mathematicians that are in this. Here it is. 2.3 formalism. David Hilbert agreed with the institutionists that there is a sense in which the natural numbers are basic in mathematics. But unlike the institutionists, Hilbert did not take a natural number to be mental construction. Instead, he argued that the natural numbers can be taken by symbols. Symbols are, strictly speaking, abstract objects. Nonetheless, it is essential to symbols that they can be embodied by concrete objects. So we may call them quasi-concrete objects. Parson, 2008, he embodied the concrete objects, so we may call them, Parsons chapter 1, perhaps physical entities could play the role of the natural numbers. For instance, we may take a concrete ink, trace it of the form to be the number O, or it can concretely realize ink, trace it to the number 1. I meant number 0, number 1, and so on. Here thought it doubtful at best that the higher mathematics could be directly interpreted in similar, straightforward, and perhaps even concrete manner. Unlike the institutionists, unlike the intuitionists, Hilbert was not prepared to take a revisionist stance toward the existing body of the mathematical knowledge. And instead, he adopted an instrumentalist instance with respect to ancient higher mathematics. He thought that the higher mathematics is not more than a formal game. The statement of higher order mathematics are uninterrupted strings of symbols. Proving such statements is no more than a game in which symbols are manipulated according to a fixed rules. The point of this game of a higher mathematics, consists in Hilbert's view in proving statements of elementary arithmetic which do not have a direct interpretation. Hilbert, 1925. Hilbert thought that there can be no reasonable doubt about the soundness of classic penal arithmetic, or at least about the soundness of a system of it that it is called primitive recursive arithmetics. Tate, 1981. And he thought that every arithmetic statement can be proven by making a detour through higher mathematics, can also be proven directly in penal arithmetics. In fact, he strongly suspected that every problem of elementary arithmetic can be decided from axioms of penal arithmetics. Of course, solving arithmetical problems is arithmetic. It is, in some case, practically impossible. The history of the mathematics also shown that making a detour through higher mathematics can sometimes lead to proof of an arithmetical statement that is much shorter and that proves more insight than any purely arithmetical proof of the same statement. Hibbert realized, um, Hibbert realized, albeit somewhat dimly, that some of his convictions can actually be considered to be mathematical conjectures. For a proof in formal systems of higher mathematics, or of elementary arithmetic, it is a finite combinatorial objects which can modular coding be considered to be a natural number. But in 1920s, the details of the coding proved as natural numbers were not yet completely understood. On this formalist view, and the minimum requirements of formal systems, high mathematics is that they are at least consistent. Otherwise, every statement of elementary arithmetic can be proven in them. Hilbert also saw again dimly that the consistency of a system of high mathematics entailed that this system is at least partially arithmetically sound. So Hilbert has his students set out to prove statements such as the consistency of the standards of postulate of mathematical analysts. Of course, such statements would have to be proven in a safe part of mathematics, such as elementary arithmetic. Otherwise, the proof does not increase our convictions in the existence of mathematics analysts, and fortunately, it seems possible in principle to do this. Far in the final analyst, consistency statements are again modulo coding. Arithmetic statements, so to be precise, Hilbert and his students set out to prove the consistency of i.e. the axioms of mathematical analyst in classical penal arithmetics. This project was known as the Hilbert Program. Zach, 2006. It turned out to be more difficult than had expected. In fact, they did not even succeed in proving the consistency of the axioms of penal arithmetics and penal arithmetic. Kurt Gilbert proves that there exists an arithmetic statement that are undecidable in penal arithmetics. Godel, 1931. I'm sorry. Okay. Godel, okay. Godel, 1931. This has become known as Godel's first incompleteness theorems. This did not bode well for Hilbert's program, but it left aspects of possible that the consistency of higher mathematics is not one of these undecidable statements. Unfortunately, Godel then quickly realized that unless God forbid penal arithmetic is inconsistent, the consistency of penal arithmetic is independent of penal arithmetic. This is Godel's second incompleteness theorem. Godel and incompleteness theorems turn out to be generally applicable to all sufficient, strong, but consistent recursively axiomatizable theories. Together, they until that Hilbert's program fails. It turned out that higher mathematics cannot be interpreted in a purely instrumental way. Higher mathematics can prove arithmetical syntheses such as consistency statements that are beyond the reach of penal arithmetics. All this does not spell the end of the formalism. Even in the facts of the incompleteness theorems, it is coherent to make that mathematical is the science of formal systems. One version of this view was proposed by Curry in 1958. On this view of mathematical consistency of all collections of formal systems which have an interpretation of subject matters, Curry here makes an explained formula for mathematics relative to formal systems. One can say that the statement is true, and if only it is derived in a system, but on a fundamental level. All mathematical systems are in a par. There can be, at most programs, systems for preferring one system over another. Inconsistent systems can prove all statements and therefore are pretty unless when a system is found to be inconsistent. It must be modified. It is simple and lesson from Godel's incompleteness of theorems that the sufficiency strong consistent systems cannot be proved to its own consistency. there is a canonic, canonical object against Curry's formalist position. Mathematics do not, in fact, treat all apparently consistent formal systems as being on a pack. Most of them are unwilling to admit that the preference of the arithmetical systems in which the arithmetic systems sentences express the consistency of Pinot's arithmetics are derivable over those in which its negotiations is derivable. For instance, can unlimitedly be explained in a pure programmatical term. Many mathematicals want to maintain that the perceived incorrectness of certain formal systems must ultimately be explained by the fact that they incorrectly describe certain subject matters. The Luxon has emphasized that the incompleteness theories do not preclude that the existence of parts of higher mathematics are practiced use of solving arithmetic problems that mathematics are interested in can be arithmetically established. Jefferson, 1981, and 19 in the in this sentence sometimes can perhaps be rescued from the flames, even if Hilbert's instrumentalist stands toward all higher mathematics is ultimately unattainable. Un- no, sorry, Attainable. Another attempt to solve parts of Hilbert's program was made by Isaacson, 1987. He defended that the view that in some sense penal arithmetic may be complete after all. Isaacson, 1987, he argued that the true sentence of undecidable in penal arithmetic can be proven by means of higher order concepts. For instance, the inconsistency of penal arithmetic can be proven by including up to a finite order number. Ginson, 1938. But the notion of an ordinary number is a set theories. Theoretic is set theoretic and hence non-arithmetic concepts. If the only way to prove that the existence of arithmetic makes essential use of notions which arguably belong to higher order mathematics, then consistent in arithmetic, even though it can be expressed in a language of penal arithmetic, is a non-arithmetical problem. In generalizing from this, one can wonder whether Hilbert's conjecture that every problem of arithmetic can be decided from the axioms of penal arithmetic might still not be true. So, ladies and gentlemen, we just read formalism. And you see, in this discussion, Hilbert and his students are the main discussion in the proving and disproving of his work. And, they continue to say that at the end of the story, that all of you who could never really come to a complete proof of Hilbert, or complete the work when it came to formalism, from Godel to Isaacson and what was the last guy's name we just looked at? You know, Isaacson and what's the last guy I was looking at? The Lexington. They couldn't really, prove it, you know. But when I read this, I'm not sure if I'm on the right track when I'm looking at what I'm looking at and trying to understand. But I will say this: when I looked at this, the first thought came to mind was Montgomery used to have us do this long division, long addition. And I thought that might be what they were talking when they said higher mathematics, starting with basic mathematics, but then, going to higher mathematics. And I don't know if that's what it is, but that's what it reminded me of. Like I'm making us do this long division. Like I don't know how she would get that number and she would make it out to be so long. Like, oh man, it's just, and that's one of the things that made me kind of like, I don't want to do this, hate math, because she returned a 1 plus 1 into take up half the page. Like, how the heck you get this out of that? And we were taught, I think we were taught more memorization and better than explanation of how the number was gotten. But and look, I hope you still know because I know the reading was very long, but I do appreciate you guys being here, taking the time to listen, to build with me, and to you know, help me with getting you guys understanding and help me improve my reading as well as my understanding of mathematics at well at the same time and history of it. Again, I thank you guys for being here. Please like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment in the section. I'm always looking to improve. I'm always looking to learn things that I do not know. There's a few names that were on this list. After I finish this document of philosophy, what I'm going to do is I'm going to then start a next conversation on the people that we were looking at inside those documents. So look forward to hearing information on who they were and their works and so forth, as much as I can find on them. Then again, thank you. I appreciate you guys being here. Peace, love, and I hope to see you guys soon.